Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
Bob Anthony.
And I'm the guest and friend, Alan Singer.
Dr. Alan Singer, educator, historian. Welcome again to Media Watch. And this is being brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and Zoom. And we're taping the Wednesday before our Monday air. And lots of stuff has been in the news that we need to get to, but there's a major umbrella that Alan has nicely put together on a, I believe, Daily Kos blog talking about lies and propaganda that's being propagated not just in the U.S., in Russia, no longer the Soviet Union, and equally so, if not more so, in the United States of America. And the thrust of the piece, basically, I think, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, picked up on that discussion we had on a Media Watch show a couple of weeks back, where we were talking about some of the right-wing trolls and supposed news people, but they work for a fake news place that we don't call a news organization. Go ahead, pick up on your piece.
What's happened is that Tucker Carlson, Tucker Carlson has become a star on Russia TV media because of his basic support for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and is basically his ignorance and denial of any information. Now, so what has happened is dissidents, people who challenge the Russian line in Russia are being victimized. Teachers are being threatened with losing their jobs if they dare even to question, not even question, if they ask the students to question. Now, we often frame it as free speech, that people should have free speech, but I prefer to call it reasoned speech supported by evidence, because Tucker Carlson certainly has free speech to spout whatever he wants, but it's lies. It's not true. There's no evidence to support it. And that's the problem we're looking at. And so in Russia, the Putin regime has been promoting propaganda to keep the country in support of a basically illegal, inhuman attack on Ukraine.
They're lying to their people about the war in Ukraine and refuse to let them call it a war. They call it a necessary military action or some euphemism.
He's calling it a military action in the Donbass, and every time I hear that, it's like such an insult to our intelligence to hear him say that. But you're correct, Alan. Teachers, anybody, any dissidents, they get into trouble right away. And even if we've been off for a couple of weeks, even with that Russian missile cruiser that went down, that got sunk a couple of weeks ago, they're not even telling the families the condition of their relatives. I mean, there's so little information they've given to their own people. But continue, Alan. It's more than just the Russians; it's us too here in America.
So the corollary here in our country, Alan, that you noted so well in the piece.
Well, again, in the United States, in a number of states have tried to silence any discussion of race and racism in the history of the United States. So what they've done is they've said, you can't mention critical race theory, but really you can't discuss anything that might make any white kid feel uncomfortable in class. Now, what I've always argued as a teacher is that we're not looking at what white people did. We're looking at a racist system. We're looking at a system that has denied fundamental human rights to people. Now, there's no dispute that happened in the era of slavery. But what we need to examine as students and as teachers is what are the implications in the more modern era. Now, teachers are not saying to kids, this is what you have to believe. What teachers are saying to kids is this is what we have to discuss. And this is what where we have to examine the evidence. But in Florida, in Arizona, in Texas, in Idaho, state after state are arguing that you can't even discuss these things. But not only that, they're telling parents and kids to report teachers who might even touch on these subjects in class. So what ends up happening is teachers are terrified. Every kid's got a cell phone. Every kid is doing recordings. As a matter of fact, sometimes you record the class yourself so that students can go back and study from it.
And Russia is saying the same thing to their students,
Yeah.
saying the same thing to his students. Any teacher or any instructor that talks badly about our military Donbass and called it a war need to be reported for possible jailing, correct?
Correct. And so what we have is, it's not just a war on teachers, it's a war on thinking. It's a war on truth. And that's been going on. You know, during the Nazi regime in Germany, they were very clear about how propaganda was going to silence opposition. You know, is the big lie. You make the lie absurd enough and you repeat it often enough, and people are going to believe it. And that's what's happening in Russia about this war. And that's what's happening in the United States about any examination in schools about the history of race and racism.
So we have a problem with this big lie because the big lie in the United States is beginning to make itself heard in any number of instances. Like, for instance, Rand Paul had to be called out because Monday he was busy repeating, this is last Monday when our show airs, repeating Putin's propaganda that Russia had reason to be invading Ukraine. According to Rand Paul, there was reason for Russia to invade Ukraine, which for me is Putin's big lie. No. And so for a member of our Senate to be repeating that practically verbatim speaks to the fact that the Republican Party just seems to want to be trafficking in big lies across the board. Now you're talking about a US senator, but Bob, this stuff is being echoed statewide by the Republican Party as well. I know we were talking about that state senator from Michigan who just said, I'm sick and tired of this big lie. I'm not going to be tainted by that brush. Tell us a little bit about her and let us see some of her.
Well, I mean, first of all, Alan makes a excuse me. Alan makes a very good point because it seems like we're being taught that we shouldn't think and lead. We should listen and follow. I mean, we're not supposed to absorb new information. But the woman you're talking about, the state senator in Michigan, Mallory McMorrow, was called out recently by another.
Falsely accused, not called out, falsely accused.
Yes, yes, falsely accused. And it's not a little insult, a major insult. She was accused of supporting pedophilia. She was of grooming children. I mean, just really nasty stuff by a Republican in the state Senate in Michigan. And she came out, she had her turn to speak, and she just lit into the woman who had insulted her. And the video went viral, not just locally, worldwide. And I'll try to cue that up, at least the beginning of it, in a second. But the woman who insulted her played directly from the Republican playbook. Yep. In using the pedophilia, the QAnon type stuff. And unfortunately, it works in many situations. But let me quickly.
While you're trying to cue it up, I'll add to the fact that the woman used it as a fundraiser, her accuser.
Yes.
And when Senator Mallory, I forget her last name.
Mallory McMorrow.
McMorrow, she said, I'm not taking this because that's not me. I refuse to let you label me. She basically lit into her, and she must have had something like 8 million hits about with her speech, which hopefully we can cue up and let you folks see a little bit of it. But she got fundraising support from across the planet, and at least across this country as a result of her immediate pushback.
Yes. I'm white, I'm a Christian, I'm a mother, and I'm not going to let you call me.
Listen to that. Yeah, let's cue her up.
Yes, I'll do that right now. Coming up Here we go. I think I have it, and looks like I do have it. With Zoom, you have to make sure that you keep the audio on.
Mm-hmm.
But here, you widen it. And here's Michigan State Senator Mallory McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't expect to wake up yesterday to the news that the senator from the 22nd district had overnight accused me by name of grooming and sexualizing children in an email fundraising for herself. So I sat on it for a while wondering why me. And then I realized, because I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme, because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of, quote, parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no. So then what? Then you dehumanize and marginalize me. You say that I'm one of them. You say she's a groomer. She supports pedophilia. She wants children to believe that they were responsible for slavery and to feel bad about themselves because they're white. Well, here's a little bit of background about who I really am.
Boom. That's it.
Okay, and yeah, it goes on too long for this broadcast, but yeah, she just lights into her opponent, and there's a lot of good quotes. If you indulge me, there's one good one that she makes. This is Mallory McMorrow. I learned that service was far more important than performative nonsense like being seen in the same pew every Sunday or writing Christian in your Twitter bio and using that as a shield to target and marginalize already marginalized people. She nailed it.
Yeah. I think in the old jargon, she reamed her a new whatever,
Yes, yes,
which she so aptly deserved.
yes. In Brooklyn, we say she tore her a new one, but
Yes.
No, the thing is, we're talking about Florida, we're talking about Michigan, we're talking about Russia, but this is happening and it's going to get worse in New York. We have school board elections coming up, and there are people running in school boards and the elections who are parroting these things.
Mm-hmm.
And Zeldin, who is the more likely Republican candidate for governor, he has come out, he's going to run against critical race theory because he has to protect white children from finding out the nature of American society. So these lies and lies on lies are right at home where we are too.
So let's dig in a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about Florida, because Florida to me is a prime example of Trumpism gone into electoral politics being the flag standard for Republican elected officials, those who are already elected and those who want to be elected. And I'm seeing this grooming pedophilia thing. I'm seeing this CRT thing. And because Disney hesitated, but finally came out and said the Don't Say Gay bill is totally antithetical to human rights and blah, 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 blah. I forget what the quote of the CEO was. The governor rammed through his state legislature a bill stripping Disney of its self-governing status. I don't know if you guys been following it, but economically, it might cost Disney in the near term because they may end up having to pay something for something or other. But correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Disney actually pay for all the services that it provides itself as a town, that the county that it's in, Orlando County or wherever it is, doesn't have to pay anything, doesn't have to give them any services? And the article I read indicated that once they strip Disney of that, then whatever Disney went in debt for, 631 million, bond issue, whatever, and whatever other debts are hanging out there over the entity, the county has to pick that up.
Yeah.
They have to dig into their, not the state of Florida, the county. So somebody's going to be hurting because of Ron DeSantis and his Don't Say Gay bill. And because Disney said that is not humane, it's not unfair and it's unjust. And so they stripped Disney of their status. And now the people of at least one county in Florida, if not the whole state of Florida, going to be paying through the nose.
Well, the thing with the Disney setup, the way it is now, well, is that they're basically paying for infrastructure and services which only they use anyway. So it's not like the public is being screwed out of what's happening locally, because it's Disney that has the property, has the you know, they need the power, they need the sewer service, and they basically provided that for themselves. Now the county has to absorb that with no fresh source of revenue. So yeah, this was well, we knew it was short-sighted, but yeah, this doesn't do any good. But there's more to what's bad in Florida than just this. I know you, Ellen, had a lot to say about the books.
Yeah, well, they've been throwing books out of school libraries because and they went after math books. That was one of the weirdest things.
Yeah, you wrote a piece on that. Alan, tell us some more about these math books that they didn't want to show the people what was in the books.
Well, the New York Times actually looked at some of the pictures in the math books, and they showed interracial pictures. They showed Black and Latino and white and Asian kids. And supposedly that was critical race theory.
Well, did they show them in class doing work, or did they just show them?
There were cartoons of cartoon figures trying to solve problems. But the other thing, they accused them of some kind of sensitivity because kids were being asked to discuss their strategies for solving problems, and they were being asked to discuss their feelings about math, and somehow that was also offensive. I think what we're seeing is that the governor of Florida, I think his name is DeSatan.
Ron. Oh, okay.
Close enough. Close enough.
Nice play on words. Yes.
He wants to run for president, and what he's doing is he's positioning himself as the lunatic right candidate, and so he's endorsing all of these things that, as Bob said, financially make no sense, educationally make no sense. And it's just, he's creating a platform for his candidacy. And it's that I will protect white people from Blacks and Latinos. I will protect your children from math. And I will protect the world from the fact that there are people of different sexual orientations. You know, I've done some work on the elementary school curriculum. You do not teach kindergarten kids about sex. What you do is you teach kindergarten kids about different families. And so the idea is that there's more than one type of family. And that's where the issue comes up. But nobody is talking about teaching kindergarten kids about sexual intercourse. It's about the families. How are they similar and how are they different?
Sure.
But see, Alan, you just told the truth. The playbook says you don't tell the truth. You tell the lie. Go ahead, Eric.
There's a phrase, because I want to build on what we've been talking about truth. Just the facts, ma'am. That's supposed to be the truth. Facts, ma'am. But you know what? Facts without context is just a statement. If you don't have the context for the fact, it absolutely means almost nothing. It's a fact, but the contextual basis in which that fact lays determines whether you have truth or not. But a lot of people will try, on the flip side of stifling teachers who can't actually teach the actual true history. I would have a question about what happens to the truth in advertising for education and free speech in service of accuracy, because you're muzzling the teacher's ability by passing laws that says you can't teach this. So you're actually curtailing their, quote, free speech in the service of educating young people. And so this whole free speech thing is in another, this is a way of segueing, because the latest free speech brouhaha, of course, is Elon Musk trying to purchase Twitter because he's upset that it's stifling free speech, and all the crazy quotes that he's coming out with is totally off the wall and has no real bearing about free speech and the reality of what free speech is. But that was supposedly his reasoning for wanting to buy Twitter. And I just read a recent article about the fact that he had an agreement with Twitter that, yeah, okay, they'll let him buy it, but there are prerequisites that he agreed to and signed to, and they filed the documents with the SEC, one of which was you can't disparage Twitter in any of your statements as you make this purchase. Well, he's already broken that. So my point is, if that's his version of, quote, free speech, I can sign an agreement, but my free speech says, oh, I can disparage you anyway because I have free speech. So it means no law matters as long as you trumpet the nature of free speech, because you can break any agreement in the nature of free speech. Talk to me about what's the craziness. Bob, technically, what are we really in danger of with Twitter falling into the hands of Elon Musk? That's a big platform.
I mean, obviously Twitter evolved into something that the founder Jack Dorsey never envisioned. He didn't think that presidents would be using it as their main source of talking to the people, as Trump did. He didn't see that coming. But that's where we are today. Twitter is a major platform for public discussion of everything. But the problem here with Elon Musk taking it over, right now, Twitter has a board and they have executives and they meet and they talk about things and they make decisions. Even Jack Dorsey is still on the board. Elon Musk has taken it private. So he'll be the guy who sets the rules. He'll be the guy who tells, you know, it's what he wants is what's going to happen. We're not going to have that kind of oversight. I was telling Eric, Bill Gates had Paul Allen, Steve Jobs had Wozniak. He had somebody to bounce things off of. Elon Musk doesn't have that. And as a journalist and as a copy editor who works a lot to make sure that there's truth in context and balanced, I don't trust Elon Musk to be able to manage that.
See, part of the issue is whether things like Twitter, Facebook, Google, the internet should be public utilities owned and operated by the public with public oversight. How can we allow, because that's what happened in the last 2016-2020 election. We allowed private individuals to determine the information people received. So the question, should one very rich person be able to make those determinations? Because what's to stop Elon Musk from using Twitter to promote his own ideas? Which are very weird, by the way.
And it's not just a billionaire, it's a bit of a wingnut of a billionaire.
No, we have a problem in that our Congress does not want to tackle any legislation pertaining to the internet, these giant media companies that are supposedly open platforms for discussion, the new town square, the new global town square, and the people in Europe keep passing rules and laws to curtail this free for all, and they don't have any problems getting those laws passed. Our government can't seem to pass any law to rein in Facebook or Google or Twitter or any of these people, because they keep saying, oh, but we're not a public utility and we're self-policing, and we've seen where the self-policing has gotten us. All kinds of crazy bots, all kinds of disinformation that's pumped out by nefarious actors, which then gets spewed across the platforms as misinformation that's gobbled up by the gullible and equally nefarious people who want to spread lies and propaganda. So we got a problem. And if Twitter falls, and I say falls literally, to Elon Musk, we're going to have an even bigger problem. That's an editorial comment, folks, but I believe the facts will prove me correct if it does happen down the road. What else do we have?
I said at another forum that I can already see the day when Elon Musk sells the husk of what was once Twitter, you know, after, you know, bringing it down. But go ahead, Eric.
No, I'm just saying those were my editorial comments. I mean, I make no bones, folks. I don't think, see, I have a thing about Elon Musk. It might be personal, but it's not vendetta because I'm not in his league. But as a media person, I watch stuff. And I remember that some black workers of Tesla out in California somewhere sued Tesla for discrimination in the workplace. And they actually prevailed. They won something in the totality of like 132 or $135 million against them for the years of discriminatory treatment that they had endured. They won it. It wasn't, you know, something that he appealed and it got thrown out or anything. They came down with it. And so for me, anybody that would discriminate in a workplace against workers, whether they black, brown, whatever color, just because you got money and you can run your company the way you see fit, I don't trust. And so I remembered that story. The latest update on that story, unfortunately, folks, is I just read a couple of weeks ago where some judge decided that the 132 or 100 plus million was just too much. So he just knocked it down to 15 million. That reminds me of back in the 19th century when Elizabeth Jennings, Alan, won her suit against the Fifth Avenue or Third Avenue Railway for discriminatory treatment. And I believe the judge awarded her something like $500. And some judge said, oh, what can she do with $500? He knocked it down to 150. That's the equivalent in dollars from the 132 million to 15 million. So
Okay,
guess what? It's still a black person on the losing end of let's knock it down.
Okay, and we have about a minute left.
You know, just one last point. You know, Elon Musk did not get to where he is because he's a genius. He got to where he is because he won the lottery. You have these guys coming out of business school and they invest here and they invest there. And most of them make nothing. And every once in a while, someone hits it because they got lucky. And then they become a genius and they got to tell everybody else what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to live.
Well, if you want to listen to them, but like I said, we got to keep an eye on, just like we're keeping an eye on Eric Adams in New York, we better keep a sharp eye on Elon Musk and what he's trying to do in the global sphere and in this, what is it, beyond in space, because he's got SpaceX as well.
The multiverse.
Yes.
Guess what? People are going to be relying on him and his companies just because he has his foot right where the next step's going to be made. So I think we're about out of time, guys.
Yes.
This has been Media Watch. I'm Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on Twitter and YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
And I'm their guest and friend, Alan Singer. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Alan. We'll catch you the next time, folks. Stay safe. It may not be a pandemic, but viruses is still percolating out there.